It's 30 minutes of wit, wisdom, and hellfire. Your calls are welcome at 613-413-2217 or email info@lgreen.ca. Now, here is Lowell Green.
Hey, thank you, John. How do you feel about loaning me some money, John? You got any spare cash there?
Sure, I'm just rolling in that stuff. Why?
Well, I bought a Christmas tree yesterday.
Oh, I'm afraid. I'm afraid to ask.
Oh, you know what? Like Chrystia Freeland, our esteemed finance minister, says, you and me, John, we got far too much money in our savings account, okay? This is craziness, she says. Yeah, no, she does. This is a big thing now. You should take the money out of the savings account and spend it.
Okay.
Keeping in mind, of course, when you spend money, the government, Chrystia Freeland, gets a big chunk of it, right? So anyway, I took her advice. I cashed in all of my life savings yesterday, and I bought a Christmas tree. Have you, John? John, you have artificial trees. What, 12 you say in your house?
5.
5?
Ridiculous, I know.
Well, I'm going to tell you. So anyway, we had been told that Christmas trees are in a little bit of short supply. Apparently, excuse me, everybody this year wants a live Christmas tree. Try to cheer them up, I guess. Good news. So we set out yesterday, Sunday, find a Christmas tree. Well, we spotted a lovely one, beautifully shaped, all shaped up and everything. $140 the guy wanted.
Are you kidding me?
No,
I was going to say
not.
I was going to say $50.
Oh, yeah, I know, $50. That's 1927. You get one for $50.
Oh my
God. Anyway, we patrolled around other places. We finally found this god-awful, ugly tree, okay?
Uh-huh.
But it's tall. It's about 9 feet tall. How ugly is it? So ugly that we have nicknamed it, now it's in our living room, COVID-9. COVID for obvious reasons, 9 because it's 9 feet tall. It's very skinny. I don't mind the skinny so much, but it's God or nature or squirrels or something, we're not kind to this tree, okay? I don't know how to describe it. It sort of narrows down and then bulges up. Remember some of these pictures of women in the 20s with their girdles sort of squeezed out their bosoms and everything?
Yeah.
Well, it looks a little bit like somebody applied a girdle to the top part of the tree, and then the bosoms are sticking out on the top. I don't know how we're going to decorate this, but you know what? We love it. To me, John, it's the perfect tree for 2020.
Yep,
okay?
Sounds like it.
I mean, you could not have a perfect tree on 2020. It just wouldn't be right.
That's fantastic.
So there she sits. I wish I could show you a picture, but I cannot. There she sits in all her glory, her skinny glory, her misshapen glory, in our living room, about to be decorated. But you know what? It smells lovely.
Yeah.
The whole room. That's what I like
about
real trees. It smells absolutely lovely. But $95. Apparently, actually, it started out at $125, and we kept pointing out how ugly the thing was. Funny, okay, $95. So,
I hope you take a picture of this.
Oh, you know what? I may do that. You talk about a Charlie Brown tree. It's not quite as bad as Charlie Brown's, but I'm going to tell you, it's not far behind it. Honest to goodness.
Oh, that's great.
$95. But you know what? We'll have stories now the rest of our lives, okay? That's one of the things you forget. Sometimes when you go through some of these crazy things, they give you stories.
Oh, yeah.
Stories to tell your kids and grandkids until you drive them nuts years down the pipe. Have you got any stories that do you have children, John?
I wish, but no.
No children. All right. Well, it's just as well because you can only tell them so many stories after which they sort of turn away, right? Charlie Brown tree, $95.
With my 5 artificial trees, I kind of want to just mix and match now. See just how ugly, a couple of trees I can create, just to keep up with the greens.
Can you, with those artificial trees, can you pull the little branches off?
I'm sure you can. I got enough duct tape and lock ties here. I can create something.
Oh my goodness, we're all laughing here. COVID-9 sits in our living room, but I'm just joking about cashing in all of my life savings to buy a Christmas tree. By the way, I wonder how much of the $95 or the $140 is carbon tax. I haven't quite figured this out yet. If there's carbon tax on trees, got to be tax of some kind. But this business, John, our esteemed finance minister, honestly, telling us that we've got too much money stored away in our savings accounts, and we should. Can you imagine? I mean, God knows. I mean, we're in a financial mess. God only knows where it's going to end up. God only knows if the country's going to have any money left, let alone us. And she has the nerve to. It's a criticism. You got too much money in your savings account. Pull it out, as if we're hoarding. It's not hoarding, Christine. It's not hoarding. It's just saving because you people have screwed things up so bad. We're going to hang on to every dollar we can find. Ay. You know, we've had some goofy, wild advice from this government before, but this has got to take the cake. Very clearly, our esteemed finance minister has taken total leave of her senses. Mind you, if you want to take a little bit of those savings out and buy some appliances, you can always go up to Pakenham or do this. How's that for coming into a commercial, right? Or you can go to Centennial Glass. If you're going to take money out of the savings account, and, you know, if you're a good liberal and you're going to listen to the esteemed finance minister and your esteemed prime minister and you're going to behave and do what they say, take the money out and spend it at Centennial Glass or Shields for new appliances or glass.
Masterfully done, Lowell Green. Masterfully done.
Honest to God. Talking about wasting money. Can you believe, apparently, according to Carol Ann Meehan, city councillor, OC Transpo is now losing $4 million a week? You remember last week sometime, John, you and I were talking about empty buses.
Yep.
Very often articulated buses, which means two buses, really, patrolling the streets of Canada and Barhaven and God knows where, empty, Stittsville. They're going through the streets of Stittsville and Canada empty at 9 o'clock at night. And they're losing, apparently, $4 million a week. That's our money. I mean, can anybody not sort of readjust and have a look at what's really happening? I talked about this last week. We've got to reassess the whole public transportation system. I doubt if a lot of these people who are now working from home will ever again work downtown. Do we really need to expand LRT? And if we do, to what degree? Where? Should we have a different look at different locations? Do we need the same frequency? We sure as hell don't need the same frequency with those buses. It makes no sense for double-decker or articulated buses to be running through the streets of Stittsville or Canada at 9 o'clock at night with nobody in it. It makes no sense. And very clearly, $4 million a week loss. We don't have that kind of money. Unbelievable. Like sometimes, John, you just sort of have to shake your head and say, is there anybody with a brain or common sense in charge anymore around here? And talking about that. Oh, by the way, we have some text. Let's.
We've got a pile already.
All right, pile away, John. Hit me with your best ones.
Tina Marie says Orleans as well. Barely anyone on the buses, and she adds that LRT is a joke. Howard says I see the double deckers in Orleans all the time, completely empty.
Yep.
Let me see here. We've got Heather. First time that Heather Hickey's commented. That comment from Chrystia Freeland was abhorrent.
Glad to see you awake, Heather Hickey. Glad to see you awake, my dear.
They need to keep their grubby mitts off the money of the citizens of Canada, she says.
Right.
Rob in Carlton Place. I can't believe how many Canadians are so selfish. They actually are choosing not to take the vaccine. Obviously, Canada has been far too generous during this pandemic. If people dying every day is not enough, or if a federal debt soaring past $1 trillion is not enough, or if watching thousands of small business owners losing everything they worked so hard to build is not enough to get this vaccine, then we need to start sending every Canadian a bill for their share of this pandemic. Even a tiny fraction of the cost would have people stampeding for the vaccine lineup. Rob in Carlton Place.
Let me just comment on this.
Yep.
You know, excuse me. Once again, We're letting the Prime Minister and the government off lightly here. We're giving them essentially a free pass on this. Because pretty well all we're hearing these days, the news media, is, well, we're going to have the vaccines. In fact, now they're saying, well, we're going to get a few 100,000 vaccines probably before the end of this year. Maybe, perhaps, if we're lucky. And we're going to have enough for 3 million inoculations by the end of March. I've pointed this out, and I'm not alone in pointing this out. 3 million people being vaccinated is about 8% of Canada's population in the first 3 months. So it raises the question, and apparently, the NDP seems to be the only ones who've sort of caught into this. Mr. Prime Minister, sir, why did you only order enough vaccine for the first 3 months, the first quarter of next year, for 3 million inoculations in a population of 37 million people? We have 37 million people living in this country. They tell us that the 3 million inoculations will not be enough to even cover those people who are most vulnerable. There will not, in those first 3 months, the Prime Minister has been so remiss, so screwed up, so wrong. He didn't even order enough to vaccinate all people in long-term care and frontline workers. Why? Why would you not at least, at the very, if you're not going to order enough to do half the population or 3/4 or the entire population by the end of March, why the hell would you not at least order enough vaccine so that people in long-term care, frontline workers, the staff in long-term care, frontline workers, doctors, nurses, medics, why would you at least not order enough so at the very least we could have them vaccinated? I mean, here's what happened. And once again, for the most part, we're just giving Trudeau a free pass on this. We now know, somebody has dug these facts out, and that is that the Prime Minister and members of the Liberal, I'm not going to absolve any of them, dithered and dicked around with China, trying to work out a deal. Why with China? God only knows. I mean, we're not exactly friends with China. Not exactly friends. The two Michaels who've been imprisoned there for over 700 days can assure you of that. So why would we spend all of this time, apparently right up until May and maybe even into June, Trudeau is dicking and fooling and farting and screwing around with Russia, trying to work out some kind of a deal where they'll provide sufficient vaccines or whatever, and we can make them here. I can't get it all clear. Nobody seems to have it. All we know is that at least until May and probably into June sometime, they dicked around with China, and finally China couldn't do business with us for one reason or the other and said take off. So we had nothing. By this time, all the other nations pretty well on the earth have already ordered all of the vaccines. So we're at the end of the line. Sometime not until August did we order, and we didn't order enough. What a bunch of dummies. If you can think of a more apt phrase to describe this, God only knows. More emails, John.
We've got a text, 613-413-2217. You can text or call that number. This text says, what happened to the 300 million plus vaccines JT bragged about last summer?
He what? I'm sorry?
What happened to the 300 million plus vaccines JT bragged about last summer?
Well, apparently they're coming, but 300,000, as I say, that's less than 10%. Well, 300,000 apparently. I don't know. I can't keep track of it all. Who the hell can? Apparently now today we're told that we're going to get something like 300,000 by the end of this month. But it's a total of only 3 million by the end of March. By the end of March, the Britain will have at least half its population, perhaps more, vaccinated. Ditto the United States, perhaps more. Germany, Spain, even Brazil will have about half its population vaccinated by the time we have about 8% of ours vaccinated, if in fact it ever comes in. Total, absolute, and utter screw up. And once again, we're giving the Prime Minister a free pass. It's all like what I'm hearing and seeing and reading now is almost praise. Oh yeah, well we got more of this stuff coming in. 300,000. We have a population of 37 million people. Ay. Now, I'd love to take some phone calls. We've had some pretty good phone calls lately. I want to congratulate you. The line is there. Love to hear from you. Any comments on this? And by the way, let me just say this. I'm in a big feud right now because I happen to believe that, and I literally, the millions of doctors and nurses and scientists and health workers, etc., around the world who say COVID is very serious. It's killing people. It's maiming people. It's plugging up the hospitals. And if we don't control it, it can get out of control. And that's coming very close to happening in Alberta right now. So I happen to believe them. I believe it's a serious disease. I don't agree with all of the lockdowns. I disagree. But you know what? That's what the experts are telling us. But so I'm in a real feud with people who think that I've sold out to the devil or something on this. It's unbelievable. But I just wanted to say about that I think a lot of these people who now say, "Oh, I'm not going to take the vaccine," I have a feeling that when it comes along and you see all the other countries out there with people free to move about, free to have Christmas parties, free to travel to the south, I think a lot of these people will change their minds. I understand the hesitancy. It's been very fast. Try to point out that we have been working with COVID vaccines for for 7 or 8 years, okay? Over 30,000 people tested with this. Some of the best experts. There's so many things that jump into my mind here, but one of the things that always really puzzles me is these people who believe it's all a hoax and that the death figures and so forth are all inflated. If you really feel that this is all a hoax and that we really aren't killing that many people, then what you must believe is that millions of doctors, including probably your doctor, and including probably nurses who live next door to you, and coroners around the world, millions of them, are all involved in a giant hoax and are afraid to speak up about it. Have you never met a doctor or a nurse who's not afraid of anything? And if they saw something wrong, would speak up? I mean, if you think that there's not really this many deaths, then what you are saying is that every coroner in the world, is lying, is filling out false death certificates, and nobody is blowing the whistle on it. Come on. You know what? The noggin is up there. There's a brain inside the noggin. It's meant to be used with a little bit of common sense. Now, I have to take a little bit of a break here. I half jokingly suggested that if our esteemed, we have a phone call. All right, you can interrupt me anytime for a phone call. Who's on the line there, John?
This is Barry.
Oh, Barry, good old Barry. We've had Barry on before. Good to hear. What's on your mind today, Barry?
Well, just hearing about the buses all this week, Lowell, just makes me wonder what kind of a brain-dead mayor we have that he would probably say as an excuse for running the buses all the time and not cutting back on them that it's an essential service, even though nobody's using it.
Yeah, $4 million. I don't know how Caroline Meehan got this information, but very clearly she knows what she's talking about on this. She wouldn't raise this issue. I know Caroline very well. $4 million a week we are losing. And buses are running empty. I mean, you know what? I mean, the administration at OC Transpo, Mancati, they must know this. They must know what the ridership is. I don't understand this. I mean, if you're running empty buses, for God's sake, cut back on the schedules. What the hell's the matter with these people? Barry.
I just sent you a text, Lowell, a few minutes back there that I said, well, if that $4 million a week include depreciation on the buses and fuel costs and maintenance time and, other things. I didn't make it that lengthy, but just that point, everything, tires, everything's so much more expensive now. Just the fuel costs alone, they're creating more extra air pollution, adding to this, I don't know if we got a smog problem here in Ottawa, but, it certainly doesn't make the air healthier to breathe.
We have a brain fog problem here in Ottawa. I agree with you. I don't know so much. You know what, Barry? So much of what is occurring these days just simply doesn't make any sense to me. I wrote a book called Common Sense for a Wounded Nation. I just see less and less common sense being used these days. Thank you for your call, Barry. God bless you. Keep on calling, my boy.
No problem.
Thank you. Day of infamy. December 7, 1941, Pearl Harbor. On a totally different topic, anybody out there with any memories? I know you'd have to be a little long on the tooth. Any memories, personal memories of this? December 7, 1941, Pearl Harbor. By the way, December 7, 1941 is also the day that Canada officially declared war on Japan. Now, I must tell you, I have some memories of that day that I have never shared with anyone. I don't even think with my wife, but the time has probably come. I mean, it's not earth-shattering, but some very interesting memories. On December 7, 1941, I am visiting my father in Ann Arbor, Michigan. He is attending the University of Michigan, living in a little house on West Division Street in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So the day comes, and I don't have very many memories of that particular day, but just let me go back a little bit. Just before I arrived, I'm visiting my father. I'm 5 years old, and don't ask me why I'm not in school. There was no kindergarten in those days. Okay, so I'm there. I'm visiting, but just before I arrived, my dad, in a burst of patriotism, tacked a Union Jack, which was Canada's, or the Red Ensign, whatever you want to call it, to the front porch of the little house he's living in Ann Arbor. Now, at that time, and a lot of people may not be aware of this, there was a very strong pro-German and anti-war movement in the United States. That's why the United States refused to enter the war. There was very strong sentiment, very little sympathy for Britain, etc., but a very strong German feeling in the United States. Not with everybody by any means, but very strong. So my dad tacks the Union Jack, or the Red Ensign, whatever you call it, to the porch of this little house, Ann Arbor, Michigan. This is about the 1st of December. The neighbors created such a fuss, objected so strongly, that a policeman came around and made my dad take the flag down. Now, what I remember, as I say, I don't remember much of the Pearl Harbor itself. I remember my dad listening to the radio and a little bit of kerfuffle like that. But the next day I remember, because the next day, that's December the 8th, my dad tacks 2 flags on the porch. He tacks the Red Ensign, the Union Jack, and a Stars and Stripe. And what I remember is now people, they're not demanding he take these down. They're walking by, they're giving the thumbs up, they're cheering, and some people are even applauding. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget. He's got the 2 flags tacked to the porch, Ann Arbor, Michigan, December 8th, one day after Pearl Harbor. That's how attitudes in the United States change. Just a little memory, 5-year-old kid. We have another phone call here. Yeah, who have we got, John?
This is Dave.
Dave? What's on your mind, Dave?
Yeah, I called you Friday telling you that the people of Canada have become stupid, I guess. And on Saturday, I think it was Saturday Citizen, I think the writer was McDougall, wrote an article that the Conservatives have to find something else to talk about because it's falling on deaf ears, the fact that they've been complaining about timelines on the vaccine and when we're getting them and et cetera. And
Right.
basically the writer said the people of Canada really don't care. They're happy with the schedule the way it is, and
Yeah, it seems it's very strange. I can't quite fathom this. I mean, all other nations pretty well on Earth, even Mexico and Brazil, a good chunk of their citizens are going to be vaccinated before we really start.
Yeah.
I don't understand this. I have a feeling that the sentiment may change when we look around, particularly if we look southern and we see older people are able to travel again, et cetera, and that maybe even attend Christmas parties, that the attitude may change. But it just seems like that we are prepared in this country to accept mediocrity.
I know
we are prepared to accept second best. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think we're being dumbed down. I think that's what it is. It's like people don't realize that they're being manipulated, and brainwashed, and it's happening. It's like today, for example, he announces we're going to get roughly 250,000 doses of the vaccine, which I don't believe, and you can bet your bottom dollar that CDC or someone has put pressure on Pfizer to make sure Canada gets some because the government's getting hammered. This placate. Like what is the Conservatives going to say now? What can they say? Well, now he's going to stand up. Well, we're getting dosages. That's what you wanted. We're getting them.
Let me throw something else out. And I know that I'm going to be accused here of racism or something, but one of the things that I'm concerned about is news now. I don't know if this is totally accurate, although according to Brian Pallister, Premier of Manitoba, it is accurate. Apparently, people in long-term care, frontline workers, etc., are not going to be the first to receive this, but apparently the first to receive it are going to be Indigenous people.
Yeah,
And
I've heard that too, actually.
If that is true, that to me is very disconcerting. I'm not suggesting that Indigenous people shouldn't be entitled like everybody else, but should their entitlement supersede everybody else's? Are you telling me that a healthy 18-year-old person on a reservation in northern Manitoba will get the vaccine before the 85-year-old resident of long-term care? Is that acceptable? I mean, I'm having some trouble here, just sort of understanding a lot of this. How about you? What do you feel about that?
Well, I've had the same impression as well that that's the route they're going to be taking, and I don't know whether it's because of I know that they were supposed to fix the water situation, which they never did, and probably never will, and they're just trying to appease them. And this is the one way of appeasing them. I don't know what's going on. Canada has gone to hell in a handbasket with this government. It's by far the worst government this country has ever seen. I can't think of a worse government than this government.
Well, the thing that's really disconcerting is that they're getting away with it.
And they're getting away with it. And I feel bad for the opposition because it's just the Canadian people they don't even care.
Another example is the wee scandal. I mean, the Liberals, you know what they did there, shut down Parliament, everything, filibustered, et cetera, and that's all going away. They won. The Liberals won on that. We'll never know what the hell they were trying to hide.
Now, 3 weeks ago, when I heard the UK was getting the vaccine, I told a few people that I think finally this may be the thing that will take this government down. When they inoculate the first person, they show it on live TV around the world, and we're not getting it. I thought this could be the card that takes them down finally, because nothing else is taking them down, and now I don't think it's going to be that. It's not going to be the situation. He will get a majority in the spring. There's no doubt about it.
People love Trudeau, particularly women.
I know.
For every man who supports him, there are about 2 women, and they are steadfast in their devotion to him. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know what the appeal is. I can't. The guy is such a liar. I mean, he can't even tell that. It's so obvious when he's lying. It's unbelievable. Like you can. He's like a teenager. You can't trust him.
Oh my goodness.
They're lying through their teeth. They're lying through their teeth, and yet people think, nah, he's telling the truth.
Thank you for the call, Dave. Thank you. I want to leave the program on a happy note. We've had enough grim news here. I want to tell you a little. Oh, we have some text coming in. Yes, John.
I know we're up against the clock. We've got about 16 comments via text.
Okay, go ahead.
How many do you want?
I'll go a little longer here.
Yeah?
Sure.
Great. I love that. I got nothing else to do, so why not?
Okay.
We just heard from Harold a second ago. He says, I've heard from a U.S. friend today that the U.S. may give vaccinations to the Black and Indigenous people because they are so downtrodden these days. That's Harold on Facebook. Glenn says, Lowell, I have a question or two about life after vaccine. When I get fully vaccinated, will I still have to wear my mask while those awaiting vaccination are still wearing theirs, which raises the question, why? I'm COVID-free and protected by the vaccine. Also, does the vaccine protect me or the unvaccinated? I would appreciate your comment and discussion on this.
Well, the vaccine protects you.
Question.
It doesn't. I mean, the vaccine doesn't protect the unvaccinated. It protects you. That's a good question. Whether you would continue to wear the mask. Very clearly, if you don't have COVID, I don't see why you'd have to continue wearing the mask. But that would be up to the health official. I'm not a doctor. But I mean, no. Please understand, the vaccine will make you immune. You can, if you're vaccinated, you will be able to move no matter where you want to go, including a whole batch of people who've got COVID, and you will not get it. It'll make you immune. Well, at least 95% sure. Another telephone call? Sure. Who have we got, John?
Go ahead, caller.
Hey, Lowell, it's Howard.
Yes, Howard.
So I was listening to Trudeau's press conference today on I was watching it on Facebook.
Oh, that'd be a treat.
It was a treat. They did say all Indigenous people are going to get the vaccines first. They have some of the vaccines in flight now to destinations, but the ones that that have to go to -80, a little bit more planning has to be thought out with that before they can go ahead with that. So it looks like, to me, the people that really need it the most aren't, not that the Indigenous people don't need it, but the elderly, the sick, the first care worker, they're not going to get it for a while. And what I found really hilarious, well, it's not really hilarious, all the anti-vaxxers that were on the frickin' Facebook saying that we're not taking the shot, we're not getting, you know why? Because the government put mini microchips in all the shots, and that's how they're going to track us.
Bill Gates has done this. Bill Gates apparently, according to some of these people, these nutters, Bill Gates has apparently made sure that every vaccine dose has a microchip that will control you. Once you're vaccinated, the government will be under control. The government will be able to say to you, look, you little bugger out there, we want you got $12.95 in the bank. You go down to the bank right now and take that money out, and you give it to Chrystia Freeland, okay? That's Bill Gates has done that. If you've got $50 in the bank, that's it. Take the $50 out and give it to a liberal. That's what Bill Gates is going to do.
Telling you right now, I know we can't travel, okay? The most of us, but I'm heading to the island of insanity, Lowell. This is crazy.
I'm already there. Thanks for calling. All right.
Thanks.
We've got some more. Okay, you're not going to let me go here. All right, that's good. What else have we got here, John?
Paul wants some mini microchips, please. Sherry says, I don't like anything about him, especially his brows. There you go. Female not liking Trudeau for you. Terry, can you buy a vaccine with the CERB money Trudeau is taking back from you? Terry also enjoyed your story, by the way. He says you are the human encyclopedia. Rick says the problem is the media are repeating his lies. Brian,
not questioning them, that's for sure.
Brian says give the vaccines to the ones who are the most vulnerable and leave the rest of us alone. Hey, there's Howard again. Most anti-vaxxers on Trudeau's news conference today were making comments. Oh, he just addressed that as well. Georgia says, I think that the government has used this pandemic to do so much that at this point they have pushed us to lose faith and lack of trust in it. Look at we, etc. Paul talking about his savings account. It pays 0.01%. Lowell, I'm deeply disappointed in the views of many of the anti-maskers and vaxxers. Their emptions are running away with them, as I see it, not being very rational at all. One has to separate feels and emotions from facts and fiction. Keep a level head. I don't see a lot of that happening. One can tell there are antagonists out there stirring the pot. They won't let fear and common sense stand in their way. They do this for shits and giggles. I hope common sense will prevail, and everyone who can be vaccinated when it becomes available will do so, as I don't want to be held hostage to a bunch of otherwise idiots.
I do have to go. I would like to comment about the anti-vaxxers. I think that many of them are being badly misled by some of these websites, and you and I have talked about this before.
Oh yeah.
I suspect I know, for example, that BitChute is a website specifically set up to encourage hate, which in turn is to disrupt the economy of countries. I suspect that some of these some of these websites that are spreading all sorts of lies. I mean, Bill Gates is going to insert microchips, and so that's very common stuff on websites. You have to ask yourself, why would anybody say that unless they really wanted to damage a country? And you have to ask, okay, who wants to damage the country? There's some individuals, idiots, of course, but you have to look at other countries like Russia, China, for example. Russia was accused by a lot of Americans and others up here of disrupting elections and so forth. Are they behind? I don't know. I'm raising some questions here. I am very suspicious of some of these websites that are spreading this false information, these outrageous lies. And in many cases, they are quoting so-called doctors, PhDs, as claiming that breathing through a mask, for example, poisons you. This is a very common claim. Are these other governments trying to disrupt this country? Why are they doing this? You have to ask yourself that. More emails coming in here.
We've got a ton, but I love this one from Harold, who says, honestly, who isn't carrying a cell phone these days? If they want to track you, you would be tracked. Yes. Yes.
All right. I have another story, a lovely little story, but I'll keep it. I'll save it for tomorrow because we're way over time. Listen, thank you all. I love it, the fact that texts are starting to come in, getting phone calls. Means we're starting to make some inroads out there. Very, very good. Thank you kindly. We'll be back tomorrow.
To the new No Holds Barred show on BlastTheRadio.com and get the show on demand with the Lowell Green podcast, available on iTunes, Spotify, Google, and more.